take a look around. From the smartwatch you might be wearing to the traffic lights you passed on your way to work, we are living in this invisible world of connected devices. And they're great. They make our lives easier, our homes smarter. But have you ever stopped to think, what happens if this whole network, this massive web of things, turns against us?
So yeah, what does keep all these billions of smart devices from going rogue? I know it sounds a little sci-fi, right? But the threat is absolutely real. I mean, if a device can be controlled remotely to help you, it can also be controlled to hurt you. The answer, and this is pretty cool, lies in something most people have never even heard of. It's basically a digital immune system. So let's unpack that. Okay, first, let's just try to wrap our heads around the scale we're talking about here. By 2025, the projection is for over 75 billion devices connected to the Internet of Things, the IoT. That's not just a lot. It's a massive global population of gadgets. And here's the kicker. Every single one of them is a potential backdoor for an attack. And look, the consequences here aren't just, your data getting stolen. This stuff gets real fast. We're talking about hacked cameras watching you in your own home, smart cars that get bricked, just totally disabled while you're driving, medical sensors that lie, or even worse, the entire power grid for a city just failing. This goes way beyond convenience. It's about safety, plain and simple. So the big question is, how do we build a world full of these things that we can actually trust? Well, the answer starts in a place you probably wouldn't expect. It's not on the internet, not in some fancy server room. It starts on the factory floor. A device's entire security journey begins before it's even powered on for the very first time. It all boils down to one thing: its identity. See, every single legitimate device gets something called an initial device identity. The easiest way to think of this is like a digital birth certificate, but it's a special kind. It's unique, it's unforgeable, and it's cryptographic. Now, don't let that word scare you. Cryptographic basically just means it's sealed with some seriously complex math, making it next to impossible to fake. This is the proof that your device is the real deal, not some cheap knockoff, and it's the bedrock for every other piece of security built on top of it. But here's the thing, actually creating this digital birth certificate is a huge challenge. For one thing, the factory itself might not be a secure environment. So trying to inject these super secret digital keys without someone copying them, that's really, really hard. And get this, a lot of these factories don't even have a stable internet connection. So the device can't just phone home to a central security server to prove who it is. It's a tough problem. Okay, so our device is born with this super secure identity. Great. But what happens once it's out in the wild, facing brand new threats that pop up every day? Well, that's where the next piece of the puzzle comes in, the ability to upgrade it remotely. We're talking about those over-the-air updates, or OTA updates, you see on your phone. Now, you'd think this would be a solved problem, but for the longest time, the way engineers built these update systems was, well, let's be honest, it was a total mess. It was kind of the Wild West. There was no standard playbook. Everyone was just figuring it out on their own, which, as you can imagine, created massive risks for security and just for the device working at all. So, to clean up this mess, the whole industry had to make a big shift. They had to move away from just winning it and create a real, honest-to-goodness engineering playbook, something that any engineer, anywhere, could pick up and use to build an update system that was both secure and reliable. And that's precisely what a group of researchers did. They went out, gathered up all the best practices from both university labs and big tech companies, and created a structured catalog of techniques. For the first time, all this scattered knowledge was put into one unified guide. It's the playbook everyone was waiting for. Now, what makes this playbook so incredibly useful is that it's not just a list of things to do. It actually shows engineers the trade-offs. So for instance, you could use a technique to verify that an update is legit. That's a huge win for security, right? But it uses a little more battery. On the other hand, you could send smaller, bite-sized updates. That's fantastic for saving power, but it doesn't do much for security on its own. It's this constant balancing act. And this really gets to the heart of the challenge. Engineers are always caught in this tug-of-war between maximum security and maximum efficiency. Think about it. For a tiny medical sensor that runs on a battery, you absolutely have to prioritize saving power. But for a smart car that's plugged into a giant battery, you can crank up the security all the way. There's no single best solution. It all depends on what the device is and what it needs to do. So when you pull all of this together, this is where we get our digital immune system. It's a perfect analogy. That initial identity, that's the device's unique DNA. The over-the-air update, that's the vaccine.
protecting it from new threats. And that playbook for engineers? Well, that's the medical textbook that tells you exactly how to design the right vaccine for the right patient at the right time. Okay, so why should you care about all this super technical behind-the-scenes engineering stuff? Because this isn't some niche problem. This is about to become the invisible backbone of, well, pretty much everything.
We're not just talking about your smart speaker or your fancy light bulbs here. The real game changer is what's happening in the industrial world. We're talking manufacturing, transportation, the power grid. This is where the stakes get incredibly high.
And a big part of this revolution is a concept called edge computing. It's actually a pretty simple idea. Instead of sending every last bit of data on a long trip to a distant cloud server to be processed, the thinking and the computing happens right there, on the device itself, at the edge of the network. Now, why is that such a big deal? Because it means things can happen fast, like almost instantly. When you're running a robotic factory or trying to prevent a blackout on the power grid, you can't afford to wait for a signal to travel hundreds of miles to the cloud and back. You need real-time decisions made in a blink. And the only way that's possible is if those devices making the decisions are 100% trustworthy and secure, which, you guessed it, is exactly what this whole digital immune system is for. And this is where it all comes together. This digital immune system becomes absolutely mission critical for things like the smart grids that keep our lights on, the autonomous factories that build everything we use, the connected transportation systems that get us from A to B, and the monitoring systems that make sure our water is safe to drink. So, here's the bottom line. This whole system, the ability to give a device a trusted identity and then keep it updated safely and reliably, it's the invisible backbone. It's the quiet, essential infrastructure that our entire connected future is being built on. Seriously, without it, none of this cool futuristic stuff works. Which brings us to one last really big question to leave you with. As we keep connecting literally everything in our world, from our coffee makers to our entire cities, who gets to write the rules for this immune system? Who do we as a society trust to design and manage something this powerful? That's a question we're all going to have to answer, and soon.